Alright, let's go through the homework for Logic Chapter 2, Section 4. We'll start off with I'm sure you don't believe in God. I mean, you can either disbelieve in the existence of God or be a weak, whining, shallow do-gooder. Nobody wants to be a weak, whining, shallow do-gooder, so surely you don't believe in God. Now, this is a case of where, the fact that some of these fallacies can fall into more than one. Some people could say this is an appeal to force or appeal to making a threat. You don't want to be that, do you? Or it may be an ad hominem, attacking people who believe in God. But what we have here is we sort of are in this category. It's a fallacy of presumption, and we would say that this is actually sort of trying to create a false dichotomy, right? You either believe in God or you're a do-gooder. And so it's creating a false dichotomy. It's making an either-or, and it doesn't have to be an either-or. And so that's what we call a false dichotomy. It's creating a false division between two things. The next one is medical marijuana is obviously wrong because it's not right. Okay, medical marijuana is wrong. Why? Because it's not right. That's nice. The reason it's wrong is it's not right. That is going around in a circle, and so that's what we call begging the question. It's going around in a circle. What's not right is not right because it's wrong. That's a circle. Okay? That pretty much explains it. It's not right because it's not wrong. It's wrong because it's not right. We were disturbed to read the Times that during the past 5 years, many of the middle school students searched illegally carried firearms. Obviously, they should fire the school administration for conducting those illegal searches. Now, this one you might go, what? And that's sort of usually what happens with what we call ambivalence, is you usually read it and you're going, what are they talking about? And basically, it's depending upon it's confused by grammatically unclear writing. Okay, because what can happen is is middle school students searched illegally carried firearms. Well, why were they being searched illegally? But in fact, what they're saying essentially is, illegally carried. That's sort of looking at that as a compact modifier, as a noun, as a compound modifier to the word firearm. Illegally carried firearms. One of your answers on the math exam is not right, and if it's not right, it's wrong. Furthermore, what's wrong is immoral, so one of your answers on the math exam is immoral. Okay, so what this is depending upon saying, if something's wrong, it's immoral. Well, sometimes things that are wrong are immoral, but it's depending upon that idea that wrong is immoral, and being wrong on a math exam is not the same as being wrong in morality. And so it's depending upon an equivocation, confuses the meaning of wrong, and that would be all we need. G, the publisher's clearinghouse letter to me says I have already won $1 million. I can only conclude that I will definitely be wealthy very soon. Okay, so basically it's saying, hey, it's saying that I'm going to be wealthy, so we must conclude that they're right. And so essentially, they're leaving out some pretty important information. And so what we call that is suppressed evidence. I was just trying to remember the exact title we had for that. Sometimes different books use different terms. I was just trying to remember that. And so that's called suppressed evidence. And basically, it's leaving out a lot about one's likelihood of winning. Each player on the football team is outstanding, hence the team is outstanding. Now what's happening is if you have a team of all outstanding players, it may seem likely that the team as a whole is outstanding, but it's still doing what we call composition. It's saying because it's true of the parts, it's true of the whole. And so we call that a fallacy of composition. And just because the parts are true, just because the players are good, doesn't make it the case that the whole team is good. That makes sense. I mean, that's sort of explaining. It's essentially saying the parts are true, so therefore the whole doesn't necessarily have to be true. I'm sure we can agree mentally abnormal people, such as psychotics, should be hospitalized. They shouldn't be living on the streets. They shouldn't be put in prison. However, we must be willing to apply the principle consistently. And consider this. Geniuses, such as Albert Einstein, are mentally abnormal. For fewer than 1 in a million have IQs as high as Einstein's. The conclusion is inescapable. Geniuses should be hospitalized. Okay. Essentially, what it's doing is you could say that, mentally abnormal people, such as psychotics, should be hospitalized, and they shouldn't be in prison, and, you don't want them on the streets, you don't want them in prison, and we need to do this consistently, and so anybody who is abnormal needs to be in a hospital, including Einstein. And so essentially, we have this pretty, sort of worked our way around, and it's sort of taking this weird rule and trying to suggest that Einstein should be in jail, or I'm sorry, hospitalized. And essentially, I mean, it's just one of these where you're going, it is just a weird situation, and I would probably, if I were going to have all the options, I would probably call this maybe a, I would probably call it, I'm trying to remember what the name of the fallacy is right offhand. You have so many of these, sort of, the names are slipping my mind as we speak. In one of the earlier chapters, I would have called it missing the point, where you, accident, sorry, where you're misapplying a general rule. I would say there's somewhat of that going on here, and so I could see you giving an argument for that being a case of, an accident is applying a rule wrong. But it's also the case, and what I believe they're trying to go for on this one is, if we look at all these, is it's trying to sort of go with a form of suppressed evidence, or perhaps a form of equivocation, and it's essentially trying to depend upon the double meaning. Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's trying to depend upon the double meaning of the word abnormal. It's trying to say that, people who are mentally abnormal, well, when you think of mentally abnormal, you're thinking of people who are, at least initially, it's trying to depend upon people who have, psychotics, whereas not all people who are mentally abnormal are psychotic. There are also people who are just geniuses, but still mentally abnormal. And so it's relying on the double meaning of mentally abnormal. So essentially that's what it's doing. Now in this case, I was sort of going back and forth because I was trying to think of what it was. I don't have the answers in front of me, and I'm just doing this from my experience, and so I was trying to remember, what is he trying to go for here with this example, and he's trying to depend upon this mentally abnormal concept. He's trying to equivocate it. But I could also see you saying it's also an accident. I could see you giving arguments for others, and that's why, the key is you need to realize there are fallacies being committed. Sometimes, if you can't get it exactly right, that's why you're offering that explanation. Number 16, either we kill the infidels or God will send us to hell. We don't want to go to hell, we should kill the infidels. So he's saying, kill the people who are sinners, or God will send us all to hell, and we don't want to go to hell, so kill sinners. And that's basically suggesting that it's either kill infidels or go to hell. And that's a bit of a false dichotomy. Is that the only option? Our arguer is creating two categories without other options. That would be sufficient. Bob said he saw the president of the U.S. with the hotel doorman and asked for his autograph. I guess Bob thought the doorman was somebody special. Okay, he saw him with the hotel doorman and asked for his autograph. That is what's confusing. Is he referring to the president? Who's that pronoun referring to? Or is he referring to the doorman? Because the doorman was the most recently used person. And so essentially what we have here is we have a Sibylle. We have some confusion in the sentence is grammatically confusing with the pronoun and who the pronoun refers to. All of us cannot be famous because all of us cannot be well known. So we can't be famous because we can't all be well known. And so that is basically begging the question, right? It's essentially it's arguing in a circle. The definition, the reason we can't be famous is part of the premises. Okay? And that's essentially what begging the question is. So it's going around. We can't be famous because we can't be well known. Alright. I hope that answers all those, and good luck.